In this video, I want to talk about the higher being, the observer self. There's a part of us mentally that if we're on a spiritual search that we're told to get to, and that is kind of a place where we're observing life and observing things from some sort of a mental perspective that has us detached. And boy, you work at that and go, how does that work? And I've worked at it enough to be able to identify what it is and how to actually manage it better, simply by understanding there's different brain states and what is happening at those brain states. It is completely mental. My name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to the video. This is actually from the template, from the sequences of patterned material from antiquity. I'll just let that go. This is actually how we use the material to self-heal. But there is this part that we're supposed to get to, and we're instructed to get there. And actually, the material, when you look in Jewish material, there is a God, the God of the Jews, this higher being that is there. And then the people along the way, the called people, the prophets, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the other people along the way, they're all parts of stories that are monomyths. They're all called people. The God is that higher being in our minds. So when they created Jewish material, they took that higher being and turned it into an entity, and they took the concepts, the parts of who and what we are, our consciousness, the things that we're storing away, turned that into man and woman. And that is how the story is held in Jewish material. So if we want to heal using Jewish material, we can understand that God is an analog, which means that higher self. How do we get there? How do we recognize it? How do we talk to God? How do we be our own God to heal what needs to be healed? I've been thinking about this video for a while. I'm kind of stuck wandering around throughout the days. I'm recovering from an illness. I still got something in my chest, a little rumbly sometimes. But I've been thinking about, after going through the material and finding the template and trying to work on the sequences and extract what they're doing with analogs from 3,500, 4,000 years ago in Jewish material, it becomes a very big job. But there's a point where this is very difficult to see what I'm doing. However, people are very interested in what it gets to. There is a self-healing set of steps that become mentally interactive that we can update with verbiage and just get away from all of the antiquated weird stuff and say, okay, what are they getting at? It is mental. It is mental. It's not supernatural at all. And I'm going to suggest that the template is how the human comes about, our life, what we learn, how we emerge, how we become hurt, how at some point in time in life, some of us, the called ones, we're the ones we get to a point in time in life where we want to turn inward and change things. There's that saying that we all have two lives, and the second one starts when we get old enough to understand we only have one life. Does that make sense? It's like my life is in shambles. What happened? How do I heal? What can I do? We're willing to turn inward. That is when the material needs to be understood. How do I interact with this? What is the God? What are the pieces? What are the parts? And they're mental constructs based on how we came about. So we emerge, we've got certain qualities and characteristics, and we're very attached to this higher being, this higher self, the universe, the energy, whatever it is. But we've got an empty brain, so there's nothing we can do except go along for the ride. We don't even recall until 3, 4, 5 years old. We start getting bits and pieces of memories, and things don't really come online until our brains have developed enough for us to make enough connections to associate more. It's kind of an exponential growth. So when we're young, we're not there. But when we're little children and we've started to become happy and self-aware and we're loving life, that is a moment in time that the material is going to suggest right there. That's naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden in Jewish material. That would be where we're uncovered. We're not clothing ourselves in, we're not covering our shame. That's it. We're not hiding our life experiences with lies and deceit and anger and accusation. We're not hiding behind our weeds. or thinking we are, while actually our weeds are showing what is emerging from our gardens. We're getting to a point where we're starting to understand cause and effect. If we can think about this, though, this would be the time in our lives where we were most closely living from the higher being. We didn't have a lot of connections. We didn't know about the world yet. We weren't hurt. We hadn't judged people or things or life. We were playing in the sandbox and eating cookies, perhaps. Something along those lines. I mean, just, find a place in your own mind where before the real hurt began, the life experiences began, which would be first sin. But that's where we're living from the higher being, except for one big difference. At that point in time, we are unaware of really the scope of life, the global nature of humanity itself and what people are like and what life is like. So we're blissful, but we're ignorant. That's okay, that we're little kids. Then we lose our ignorance. We live life, we have experiences, and we judge based on those. Now we are continually living life based on the quality of the nature of what we're holding inside of us. And we've presumably gotten to a point where we understand that, so we want to heal. That's where we get stuck. What? This stuff hurts, my God. Heal. Forgive. What? You know what happened? Yeah, that's where it becomes tough when we get to this point. But that higher being gets left behind as we live life experiences. Now that higher being is what is necessary, that is still there all the time. And we can recognize it as we're going through our life experiences. It could be as simple as sitting there thinking to yourself, oh my God, I have got this issue. Yet there's another part of you that at the same time, at various times goes, you know what? If you take care of that, if you do this and you do that, you go resolve that, you get over this discomfort, you do whatever it takes right here, you're going to get past it, you're going to heal, you're going to move on. There's that part. Then there's the part of fear that goes, oh, no, I don't like that at all. So what we have is an inner conflict right there, but this is the higher being that knows what to do. However, the conscious is the one that's kind of in charge of what choices to make. It doesn't know that that's the higher being. It doesn't. We're consciously just, what do we do? We're re-experiencing the pain of a memory. We don't want to deal with that because it doesn't feel good. So that's what we kind of give into. We give into the shame, the fear, the hurt. I'm not going to deal with that. Unbeknownst to us, left there, it continues to grow, it continues to fester, it continues to build, it continues to cycle out. And when we finally realize, oh crap, that's what I have to go after. The conscious is the one that put it away, that made the memory go in there by having the experience and saying, I don't like this. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a sin, even though it might be called a sin. What it is a memory, and the emotional state of it, and what is the emotional state of it. Those are the two right there. And that emotional state is based in perception. It's based in a mental state. Even though it's triggered by a physical experience, it is no longer a physical experience. Where is it then? It resides now as a mental artifact that continually relives. We have to go after those things, but we feel all of that in the conscious. However, the higher being, the one that can come in, what we can do is go find that part of us. That's what we want to do right now. We want to find that part of us that's the higher being, but we have to understand we're not going to go do anything with it yet. Let's not be afraid of it or anything like that. We're not going to go attack or, start going after the past or anything, but just to go, what is this higher being? Let's go try to come up with some mental exercises that help us experience what the higher being is, so that when I'm consciously experiencing my current state of reality through that higher being, I recognize that that is what it is. And that if I slip out of it and I think about it, I know that I'm not there. What is it that, can we recognize that? Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy. In an emotional-based, energy-based universe with humans as emotional creatures, the emotions is what we work with. The emotions is something that we tend to not want to deal with. However, we have to learn to look at them. In this case, buried memories we think of that have an emotional state when we think about them tells us the nature of what they are. If I think about something that happened and I go, man, I will never tell anybody this. This is so shameful. That exactly tells me what it is. Something that it is a shame I am holding right there. I'm holding severe shame about something, and there's a perception there. So we learn to go explore the emotions and go, how does this make me feel? Okay, that's how I feel. Then that's the nature of how it's stored. This is my perception. We begin looking at it that way with the higher mind, but in the beginning, let's not do that. I kind of went off on a tangent there. This is how the higher mind is, the higher being. This other part of us is important. This is how God heals. But it has to do through this exchange of how we interact with our memories. The skeletons in our closet, our demons, the things that possess us. We have to befriend all of that stuff. We have to find a way to let go of it. Okay, wonderful metaphoric things. There is ultimately a stark reality to understanding those. I can put those in exact plain language. There's a memory and a perception. This is what happened. Here's how I feel about it. What's hurting me? How I feel about it. That's what's keeping it alive. What must I do? I must change how I feel about it. I must change the perception. We can't change the event. We have to change the power of it. And we give it the power by the way we feel about it. So, we get wrapped up in this whole thing. The higher being is, somehow ultimately this, ultimately as we move along, what you're going to see is that the higher being is what we're going to be using to engage with the memories that we're going to get to eventually. We just don't have to right now. Let's get to what the higher being is, the best way to recognize it. And it doesn't matter what perspective you're from. If you're up high, looking at it from a distance, maybe having within your own head, in your own eyes, here's how you see whether you're there or not. Look at your life experiences that you have. And if you can feel detached from the emotional state of those, the pain, the shame, the hurt, if you can get to a point where you're in your perception, where you no longer feel that this part of you is attached to that pain, that's the higher being right there. The part of you that is attached to the pain, that's the part of you that is the one experiencing it. It's a memory emerging. When it emerges, it activates the glands. It feels the same way. It activates our fears. We're reproducing the feelings, and the intensity of the feelings actually grow as time goes on. But as time goes on, when we're recreating this and it's emerging again in life, it's in our memories. That's where it is residing. It's in a brain state that is functioning to create life on a continual basis that way. Okay, if somebody's really hurt, they might just have a hard time getting there and think, there's no possible way to get what you're talking about. How do you not feel connected to it? And all I can say is that it is a place that you have to find in your own mind. You have to go explore the recesses of your mind. Nobody can hand this to you. If the mind can do this, it can go to a place where it steps far enough away. And what I'm going to do is maybe suggest some practices, some things to do. I had some experiences early in life that were just accidental, where I was up in the mountains and there were some really scary areas, knife ridges with a lot of high exposure. We get across, but there's sometimes people would get so terrified they couldn't get across. I was a helper person. I would stop and help, people that were like, man, they're so close to the top. You don't want them to fail. So you kind of talk them through those parts. Now, when I went across them on my own, they were scary. It was like, ooh, you better keep it together. I really felt it was a relief to get it behind you. What I found over time is that I went up and did it routinely enough, and a lot of people would ask me to go up and climb with them. And as I would help people across those, I would, without knowing this, I would be visualizing us on the ridge from a higher perspective. And it's just in my imagination. There's a part of me that's right there with them, talking to them, being gentle, helping them do there's a part of me that's up here. These are all in place at the same time. But as I'm watching from up here and I'm helping that person, I've realized that my fear is gone at that time. I am not feeling my own fear. So I've somehow circumvented an emotional experience by putting it somewhere else, helping somewhere, something somehow. I was getting into the higher being at that point in time. I didn't know that. It was something that was happening naturally, and it was just a part of personality. I've been able to do that throughout life, though, where I would picture things from a higher perspective. I could see myself down below as if I'm looking from up above. Okay, these are just things you can, if you're the right person, you've probably done this on your own. You're like, oh yeah, I can picture myself on the street down there in the bus riding through. I can see the city from up above. I can see the shore from a distance. I think that we can all do that to some extent and go, yeah, that's it? That's what you're talking about? And it really is. Except that it's understanding that when you get there, you're far enough away that you're not feeling that physical life experience. And I think sometimes it might help to go farther away. I have the one that I have called God mode in the past, but it's getting away, so far away from planet Earth even, that you can't even see life anymore. Maybe at night you see the little lights or something like that, but you're so disconnected from it that you cease to see what's going on in life. You're looking around and you're seeing the solar system and all that kind of stuff. And from that position, I feel very disconnected from what's going on on planet Earth. From out here, if I'm doing that in my imagination, I don't feel connected to what's going on the planet. I've mentally removed myself very far away from it. That might be something that you can try, or something similar to that. I would do it laying down, if I'm like, I haven't meditated to clear my mind for a long time. I spend a lot of mental time now creating images, actually, creating neural pathways instead of emptying them out. But there's certain specific ones. In this case, that's it. Being able to look at things from an outside perspective. It can be difficult at first, but you're doing the same thing like anything else. You're wiring your brain. So if you do it at first and go, whew, it's not very much, if you continue to keep at it, it'll start coming online more and more, and you'll probably start finding yourself doing it and getting other ideas. When you're in a conversation, you get pulled out of that. When you have to be engaged in something, you're going to get pulled out of that. But when you're alone and by yourself, you can get outside yourself. You can see yourself. You can observe yourself eating in a restaurant. Maybe not if you're talking with somebody, but just ideas, anything like that. Seeing things from a distance, from a detached, like you're an observer, watching it go on, and that your job is just to observe it, to not be caught up in it all. Just practice doing that. And what that'll do is it'll help you get your mind trained to be in a mind state to just quickly shift to that. You can go, oh my God, I feel really bad. What am I going to? Oh, whew. Just in time. That was close. Yeah, I got away from it. You can shift over to that detached feeling and maybe escape some of the emotional turmoil that we're going through. Some of the things that I might suggest would be to just look up videos on drone footage or something like that. I've done that before, where I can watch from above. You can if you go to a company called Pixabay, you can find videos and things like that on there of like space travel or stuff like that, free things, or find some stuff like that to look through and just picture that in your mind, but just use those as imagination points. And then, like I said, when you're laying down in bed, or maybe I would do it walking a lot on hikes, I would be picturing kind of as I go, watching myself hiking from up above. Quite often, you keep getting pulled into the environment. Ooh, look at that rock. Oh, look at the, that kind of stuff. But then keep pulling away from it. That if you just maintain that practice, that it helps your mind get there, and that is shifting into that observer self. As long as you're not emotionally caught up in it, you are in the observer self. That is the God. That is the person later on. When it's developed enough, we can begin employing it to go look at the hurt things. But for now, let's just try to work on focusing on developing somehow what that is. Finding your own day-to-day experiences where you can see outside yourself and practice observing, am I emotionally disconnected from what I see? Practice that one right there. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope that helps. I haven't I haven't tried teaching this before in a block like this. I think I've talked about bits and pieces of it here and there. And I'm not, I'm becoming aware of it and playing with it. So I don't have, I don't feel like, okay, everybody, I'm the authority on this. I don't at all. I'm just going, this is what I'm finding, and this is what seems to work, and this is how it gets there. So, and I think it's more detailed than a lot of people come up with. You know, there's a lot of people will tell you to get there, but they don't tell you how or how to measure it. And it's that emotional disconnection that's the measurement. If you're not there and you're looking from the outside, if you can see yourself from the outside, but you feel all the turmoil, that's not it. That's not it. Just looking from the outside isn't enough. You have to be disconnected from the emotional state. Yeah. I think after having said that, it's important to say that the reason this is an important state of being, it's not just because if you get here, you're going to feel better as long as you're there. But meanwhile, you know, you're getting pulled back into things. It is that this part of you can actually be used in your conscious to actively engage with the memories, to interact with them in such a way that they begin to dissipate. And that is what the healing process is going to entail. We're not there yet, but without a strong development of the observer or the higher being, that how hard is it going to be to face your fears? Yeah, that's got to be a very developed part of our healing process, that observer, self, the higher being, our God. All right. May be. I hope this is helpful. God being good or bad, this is really the idea that at some point, this creative ability back here, whatever our life is, we create. How do we create it? Good or bad? God blesses those who bless you and curses those who curse you. Whatever happens in life doesn't matter. It comes from the source. That's all that means. If I'm continually producing bad, that energy is coming from somewhere. God is providing me the energy necessary for me to continue to create bad things or to create good things. It's just a balance of it. It all comes from the same source. The good, the bad, everything, it all comes from the same source. The filters up here are what dictate what it is in life. All right. Hope this is helpful. Love one another. See you in the next video.